right, peace and blessings, everyone. Welcome back. Yes, welcome back to another installment of the STEM Files, the voice of STEM talent and Black culture. On tonight's awesome episode, we have Dr. Malika Grayson, a renowned author, renowned entrepreneur, and mechanical engineer. She's going to talk to us about what she does in terms of empowerment, as well as other aspects of her day job and night job. For more of this awesome interview and episode, tune in for more after this. Yes, family, we are back again. Yes, this is the STEM Files. We highlight the best and brightest in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I am your humble co-host, Jabril Muhammad, aka Jabrilliant Engineer. I'm a civilian mechanical engineer, United States Navy, focusing on naval ship fluid systems. I have a background in material science and engineering, which is basically the study of the various mechanical materials and their various properties and how their structures and properties correlate. I'm also joined by my illustrious co-host, Tariq Cardiac. What's going on, bro?
Yes. Peace and blessings. I'm not illustrious, but I do okay. My name is Tariq Muhammad, aka Tariq Cardiac. I'm a biomedical research scientist. A biomedical research scientist is someone trained in biology in the laboratory setting to develop new treatments for different types of diseases. My background is in cardiovascular pathobiology, which is the study of how diseases form in the heart and blood vessels. I'm excited about tonight's show. Can't wait to get started.
Absolutely. Like we always say, the show is not about us, it's who we bring on. I'm especially excited about today because we have someone on who has a similar background as I do, a fellow engineer, fellow chassis person, if you will, fellow person who understands how to do things on cost and on schedule for a specific performance. So without further ado, I want to present to all and introduce to some our STEMINIST, Dr. Malika Grayson. How you doing, Queen?
Hey, how you doing? I love how y'all introduce each other. I'm like, damn, I'm so hype, just listening to you too. It's amazing.
Thank you. We appreciate
That's what we like to do. So we just want to open up. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to get right into the nitty gritty.
Yeah, no, for sure. I was born in Brooklyn, raised in Trinidad and Tobago. Moved here for college, went to school for my bachelor's degree in physics at Adelphi University in New York. After that, I had a pivot, which we may talk about later on, where I was introduced to mechanical engineering. And that motivated me to pursue my PhD in mechanical engineering from Cornell University. Once I was finished with that, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do academia or industry. So I did a rotational program, and I've done that rotational program in the defense industry for 3 years. And it took me from California to Boston to different parts of the US. I'm now in Virginia, where I do application portfolio management. So physics, mechanical engineering, a few different sprinkles in between, and now application portfolio management to really IT management. The author of Hooded, as Jabril mentioned, and I also just launched a company called STEMINIST Empowered, and it's focused on the empowerment of women of color who are pursuing advanced degrees through mentorship and personal statement reviews.
Awesome. There's so much in what you just said. So much
Yeah.
you want to hit on. I got a fun fact. It's so crazy. So you said you got your doctorate from Cornell, right?
I did.
So like to this day, it always is like a little bit of a like. It doesn't hurt my feelings, but so I applied to 11 schools when I was coming out of high school, and Cornell's the only school that did not accept me.
Oh my God.
It's so salty.
No, I'm not so much I'm salty, but it was like I went 10 for 11, and I'm like, I went to Penn, so I'm not butthurt at all, but it was just like, you always want to go 100%, like if this you did, but it wasn't that I even wanted to strongly go there, but I was just like, y'all just
it's about applying just to it's about applying just to get in, right? And I kind of
a nice engineering program, so options open.
It's really rigorous, and I applied. So I did the same thing for graduate school. For high school to college, it wasn't so much of me trying to apply to different schools because I was living in Trinidad. I really didn't know what college was about and even what the options were here. When I came here, I didn't even imagine that the US had so many different colleges and opportunities. But when I was applying to graduate school, it was the same thing. I kind of wanted to apply to many schools. So I applied to Columbia and Georgia Tech and MIT. And then some of those schools I applied because I just wanted to see if I could get in. And then, you know, you have it in the rank system. And Cornell really, at first, it wasn't my top school because when I went to visit, it was snowing. And I was like, and it was in April when I went to visit. And I said, it's April, it is snowing. I'm from the islands. This is not the type of life I want to live. And, you know, just something about the school and something about the people I met, especially my potential professor, really motivated me and grabbed my attention. And that ended up being the school, because a lot of people thought I was going to go to Georgia Tech because I was in Atlanta the summer before, and I love Atlanta, but it just didn't work out that way.
So I do want to get into, like I said, the nitty gritty, and I'm gonna turn it over to Tariq. So we're talking about mechanical engineering. So
take your time, bro. I know this is your thing.
We always like to unpack terms. Let make sure that everyone is understanding what it is that our guest does. So, what is mechanical engineering? What led you to pursue it, and what are some innovative career paths with a mechanical engineering degree?
So I'm going to do this a little different, because I'm going to tell you a little bit about what mechanical engineering meant to me and what I did versus what people probably know to be as mechanical engineering, you know, hands-on building stuff, right?
Right.
So I grew up, I was going to be a doctor, a medical doctor, and I failed biology. I wasn't good at it at all. I tried, and it was just not working out. And I really found my passion in tinkering and fixing things around the house, breaking down appliances, putting it back together. And that translated to physics, right? Physics, chemistry, biology. Those were the three science subjects I was exposed to in secondary school. And once I decided to pursue physics and I went to undergrad, one of the opportunities I had was to do a summer undergraduate research experience at Georgia Tech. And so if you're familiar with Georgia Tech, they have something called a SHORT program, where undergraduates could come and do a 10-week research program, live there for the summer. And that was my first exposure to engineering. And it wasn't so much the type of engineering, it was seeing the equations that I was doing in undergrad being applied to real life. So I was actually seeing these things in action. I was seeing these equations in action. I was seeing what it meant for it to be applied to the things we do in our daily lives. And I immediately decided I wanted to learn more. And that is what led me to pursue mechanical engineering. Now, once I got to graduate school, and I realized I didn't have the background in mechanical engineering, right? So I had to start taking subjects during the summer, you know, really catching up on just even topics like not robotics, but there was one where like thermodynamics and other basic like structural foundational mechanical engineering courses. But I really found my interest in wind energy. And so even though my PhD is in mechanical engineering, my research and my focus and what I was passionate about was wind energy and studying the way that the wind behaves around building structures so that we can place small scale wind turbines on the rooftop of buildings. So instead of taking renewable energy from rural areas where you have that distance that you have to travel, you now have it basically on top of the rooftop of a 60-story building, right? And they're providing their own energy. They could provide their own electricity, and they could provide the people around them their electricity. So that is what mechanical engineering meant to me, and how it aligned. And that is how I went from the physics to, you know, deciding to pursue the PhD to the wind energy aspect, which of course was also motivated by my life in Trinidad, being from the islands and seeing the Caribbean breeze and wanting to figure out how we can leverage what we have, how we can leverage those renewable resources.
Absolutely. Well, let me be the first one. Well, I might be the first one to tell you that you did not miss anything veering from that biological aspect.
I knew you was going to say that.
You went on the right team. You got with the engineering aspect of
that
things.
Is hilarious.
And you're all the better for it. No, let me stop. I always mess with Tariq because he's Mr. Biology, and whenever he's talking, I get such a great understanding of that aspect. And there's always a healthy marriage to have someone in the biological sciences and have a certain background, but understand how it applies to very mechanical processes and how things are mechanical, even when you don't think they are. But that was an awesome, that was some awesome insight. And I forgot that you were interested in renewable energy and wind energy. So that was dope too. But Tariq, I'm gonna turn it over to you, and then I'll have some other questions down the line.
I'm like half salty and like half grateful. Like I can't even be mad at you now because you just complimented me like right after that. But I'm like, man, but I'm just sitting here enjoying learning from two engineers. Whenever we have an engineer on the show, I just like to sit back, relax, and let Jabril take the lead and do his thing. But one question I had for you was in regards to what you said about being so surprised to see how many schools that the United States had when you came over. What do you think is some of the reasons behind why your home country doesn't have as much resources the United States has in terms of education?
Yeah, that's a great question. The population, you have to think about the population of my country or any other country compared to the US, right? Our population is 1.5 million. I think that's the population of some of these cities that I've been in, which is crazy, right? So we have two universities, University of the West Indies and University of Trinidad and Tobago, UTT, and they're sufficient, right, for the population that we have, because the reality is, people want to get the experience not just within the country but outside as well. That's what I did, and sometimes you do need that outside experience because you need to experience different cultures. That's what makes you an all-rounded person. That's what makes you a diverse person with a better mindset when it comes to walking into situations, right? For me, coming from a place where even though we have, different ethnicities, and then coming to the US, for example, and really seeing what race means is different, because I would have never been able to walk in a room if I went to school in Trinidad, let's say, walk into a room and be surrounded with only white people, and then feel comfortable, right, the way I do now, because that's just not something I grew up with. So coming to school in the US really helped me be prepared for the industry that I'm in now. And I know, Jabril, you probably understand what I'm saying when it comes to that, because you're also in the defense.
Right. Absolutely. Wow.
Wow. A few weeks ago we had a guest on the show from the island of St. Kitts, and from what I remember, he's the first civilian crime scene investigator on that island. So I wanted to know from your story, what are some of the history-making moments that you've made, being that you're in mechanical engineering and from that country? What are some of the things that you got to be the first one to do?
Yeah,
I know it's there.
So at least at Cornell, I was actually the first. Well, as I said, I was born in Brooklyn, so I was the first Black American to graduate with a PhD in mechanical engineering, Black American female. I was also the first Caribbean woman to graduate with a PhD in mechanical engineering from Cornell. And I think that's crazy to me, because I was 2016, and the fact that was only 5 years ago, and Cornell, or a lot of those Ivy League, all the institutions, they've been around since the late 1800s, right? That says a lot.
Right.
And it says a lot about the pipeline of people coming in. It says a lot about the work we still have to do when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion in these institutions, and what the universities need to be accountable for. But I know that's like a different kind of worms, but that's one of the historic moments for me.
And what do you think are the first top three things that members of the Black community and members of the STEM community need to do to help increase the level or the amount of Black women getting PhDs in the sciences? What are some of the
Great question.
Just top three, things that you think that we can do to solve that issue?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. First of all, we need to be advocates. We need to be sponsors, right? Anything that I have been able to do, it's because someone was there to sponsor me. And if I didn't have that advocacy, I don't know if I would have gotten some of the grants that I got, for example, or would have been able to move past a um, certain timeline or certain situation within my PhD program. So that's the first thing. The second thing is really be a support system. So advocacy and sponsorship versus support system is a completely different thing. My first year, I really didn't get to know anybody. I was that, when you think of going back to your playground, you have that person in the corner. That was me. I wasn't trying to
Okay.
talk to anybody. I was trying to go to class because
That was me.
I was struggling. So go to class and get back to my apartment because I had tons of work to do. And as soon as I got introduced to student organizations like NSB, so the National Society of Black Engineers, Society of Women Engineers, we had something called Diversity Programs in Engineering at Cornell, great department. There was an outlet. There was this support system. And what I needed was that support system because going through my journey, I had some really traumatic experiences, right? One of the other things we have to do, well, a third thing is it's hard for us. A lot of us, when we go through that PhD process, we don't stay in academia, right? And so because we don't stay in academia, when someone else who looks like us is coming in, they don't see themselves represented. So how can we do that? How can we still push and make sure that more women graduate with PhDs? We have to provide some type of mentorship. That mentorship piece and having that consistency is very important because you need the guidance, you need the encouragement, you need somebody to really help you along the journey. And us as women or Black women, we also need to learn to take risk and be bold. Because if you're bold and you have that confidence and courage to really challenge the status quo, right? And really feel like you can contribute in your PhD program, in the graduate sphere of influence, you can create. And so it's almost like you need all these little things to make you better so that it can elevate you when you get to that place.
Mm. Great answers. Great answers.
Take risks. Be bold. Challenge the status quo. These
Mm-hmm.
are the things that really need to be done. You started to really go into a question I had. It made me think about it when I was looking at your Instagram and I saw it says STEM advocate. And I see a lot of people call themselves advocates in a number of different areas, whether it be STEM, whether it be, policy and practice or what have you, and I feel like I want to ask the question, are you really an advocate or are you just engaged in STEM engagement? And it's one thing to, do some volunteerism and, do activities with children as it pertains to STEM, but there's another thing to advocate on one's behalf that they may advance themselves in some way, shape, or form. Right? When we talk about true advocacy, what we're talking about is being a champion. You
Mm-hmm.
see a need and you feel that need, being a supporter, being someone who's juxtaposed to a certain struggle and being a proponent of making that no longer a struggle for that individual or series of individuals. So I love how you broke that down when it came to things like challenging the status quo. This is how it's done, but this is not the best way to do so. I wanted to ask a follow-up question when it came to education. Do you feel that there is a difference between education and academia? If so, what is that difference and why is it important for our people in particular to understand that difference, particularly when it comes to challenging the status quo and being competent and successful in society?
So when you say education, tell me what you mean.
Well, tell me what you mean. No,
No,
no, when I say education, I mean that which is requisite knowledge and wisdom that allows one to be productive and to be happy in society. That's what I think education is. I don't necessarily feel that in every case that's the same thing as academia, nor do I always feel that academia is necessary to be educated or successful.
I see. Okay. So now repeat the last part of your question for me.
So the last part was after is there a difference? Why is this difference important for our people to understand when they are striving to be successful and productive in society?
Right. I mean, I agree with you with, you know, when we think of academia, of course, you think of, you go through the pipeline, you get a degree, you are SME in something, right? Subject matter
Right.
expert. You do
Right.
that research, and so that is what makes you that expert, based on that research. So that's what I think of when I think of academia. Now, when I think of education, we go through education every day, right? I feel like I am always in school. Every time I
Yes.
go to work, I'm being
Always.
educated, and
Right.
yeah, you don't necessarily have to be in academia to be educated, if that makes sense, right?
Right.
I think being and wanting to be in academia is a very specific um, goal, very specific want based on what you want to do. If you want to be a
Absolutely.
professor, for example, if you want to be a postdoc, if you want to be a researcher, there are paths that you have to take to get there, and academia is one of
Absolutely.
those paths. Just like anywhere else, it's almost like part of your resume, right? As part of your
Right.
resume, it's a requirement. It's a requirement for you to get your PhD or go through some type of research and be an expert in one thing, so that you can get to that end goal of being that professor, that postdoc. That's me in that one topic, whether it be whatever field you pick. Whereas with the
Right.
education piece, for me, I have gotten so many different experiences just through my rotational program and my job. And that to me is a form of education, right? Within those specific fields, but I'm not an expert.
Hmm.
And if I want to be an expert, then I need to go down the role of academia.
Absolutely. I agree.
You know,
And the reason I
yeah.
asked that question, and I'm gonna turn it right over to you, Tariq, is you
No, you
know,
good.
I've sat on panels, I've talked to parents, I've talked to students. I was at my alma mater, University of Pennsylvania. I actually said this on a panel. I asked the question, why do you want to go to college? And a lot of times the students' reaction is, my parents said so, or that's
Yeah.
what you do. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not fair in the sense that you are under the false assumption that college and success are directly proportional or equal. And that's not necessarily the case. When you ask some students or people what success means to them, and I've said this on a number of occasions, sometimes they'll say, I want to make a lot of money. I stopped them right there. I said, look, you don't have to go to college for that. You got people making millions on TikTok, on YouTube, on IG,
So true.
selling a product. You sell one product for what, maybe 14 or so dollars. I forget exactly what it broke down to. You make yourself six figures by having, I think 7+ sales a day. So if we're talking about
Mm-hmm.
success from a financial perspective, college isn't really needed. However, if you have a specific means to an end, you want to be a teacher, you want to be an engineer, you want to be a professor, you want to be something that has a specific type of systemized thought process or methodology to it, you have to engage that system to a degree, right? You just because you know something doesn't mean you know how to teach it or impart knowledge.
Mm.
Just because you
Exactly.
know something doesn't mean you know how to conduct research, right? So those are the things, and I'm glad you opened that up. So I'm done on that point. I'm gonna turn it back over to Tariq.
Man, it's so much food being given tonight. This is amazing. One of the things I wanted to talk about, and you touched on it a little bit when you talked about the difference between academia and education. I'm all for talking about what you know. If you know nothing about it, you shouldn't be talking about it. Point blank. I'm a
Right,
firm believer in that.
Right.
So when it comes to the sciences, that's especially now with there being a pandemic, that's science is now the number one topic in the world right now, where it was, pushed to the side, the years before now, you know, but I want to talk about that being qualified aspect to talk about a certain subject. What are your thoughts? Like, do you believe that if somebody has read up on a certain amount of information that they're necessarily qualified to talk about it, or do they have to go through some type of schooling in that subject?
That's a great question.
That's a very interesting question. And while you're asking the question, um, it made me think of this class I've been taking, this coaching class where they talk about speaking. And one of the things we talked about was when you're quoting expertise and stating facts, and I forgot the term he used, but basically it's a term that says that you're quoting facts, right? But that doesn't mean that you're the expert, but you have to be really clear about the facts that you're quoting. And then you tie it back into your experience if you do have that experience, whether it be a personal experience. So that made me think of that. So that is a great question, because I feel as if you can get anything over the internet now, right?
Yes.
There are books for
Right.
anything, there are books for everything. Google
Mhm.
is our best friend. And it's really important for us to be mindful of the type of information we ingest from others and the information we see, especially if we don't know if they're qualified, right? And we don't ask enough, what has your professional experience been on this? Now, I personally don't think if you don't know, then you shouldn't be talking about it. But people have opinions, right? So it depends where you're sharing your opinion. Are you sharing your opinion where you are teaching a class, or maybe on a panel, and so you are sharing this opinion and just disseminating information? Or are people really taking
Relying
what
on
you're
you.
taking
Right.
what you're saying,
Right.
relying on you to learn something, and taking you to be their teacher? And that is a big difference. And I mean, we've seen it all of last year, where people talk about anything and everything, and half the world basically takes things that are false and runs with it. And so we need to be really careful. And I would encourage people, you can quote, you can state facts, but be really mindful of what you share, and make sure that you're sharing something based on the experience that you know, and not just because of 6 or 7 articles that you read, right?
Right. Right. Right.
Mm, oh my
Mm.
God. So okay, I have something because this is so important because I I respect autodidact thinkers. I do. People who are voracious readers, and if you can show me how your information has been vetted, I'm good. I don't necessarily like me and Tariq talk about employing people all the time for our company, Measurement Scientific. I'm more of the, do you have this skill? Can you demonstrate this skill? I
Right.
don't necessarily care that you have this degree or GPA. That's great, but I've met many of people, who have a certain degree but are inept. So
Right.
we can sometimes hide behind a piece of paper. And
Exactly.
what we're seeing in today's uh, society is sometimes it's misused and abused, but the term value is thrown around a lot. Are you giving value? What's the skill? There's a skills-based society to where as though you got everybody on and their mama on Clubhouse talking about a lot of different things, and they may or may not be adequately proficient in that realm. However, I will never say, for me personally, that just because you did not study this in school, that it's not correct, or I take someone's else's opinion, or because they have this background as fact over you. I think the last thing I'll say on this is, and I had a specific point. Dang it, I lost it that fast. Oh man,
You mean you
it'll
haven't
come
been
back.
on Clubhouse in the rooms of how to get $1 million? Like, you don't
No, I
believe those
haven't.
people?
I'm trying to figure out a way. I'm trying to figure out a way to mute those because I want to. That's another thing. I just Clubhouse. I'm trying. I've not been on Clubhouse. I've not been on Clubhouse for a while now, and I'm figuring out
Mhm.
because it's kind of, it gives me anxiety. I'm very
It's a
extrovert,
lot.
but I feel it's a lot. Like I feel like
It's a
it's a
lot.
job, and it's like. But if you want to create an audience, if you want to be make yourself up to be an expert and grow your audience, it's a great place to do it. But I think for me, sifting and filtering to where I need to be and really desire to be, and how often I want to use it is what I'm going through right now, because I know myself, Tariq, we have a voice, we have things to say, but what I don't want to do is try to make it seem like I'm an expert, because I'm not. But I know what I do know. I don't know what I don't know, and I think that those type of communities where everyone's trying to build each other up and cross-reference and everything and enlighten is definitely key. But whatever that other point was, I
But you
definitely get
said
back
that.
to it.
So you said something. You said you don't know what you don't know, right? And so that kind of goes back to the point that Tariq just said, where we, do we trust people who spit facts, but we don't know if they really have the knowledge behind those facts? And so you have platforms like Clubhouse, for example, where there is great value in it, but you also have to be careful because you don't know what you don't know, but you also don't know what they don't know, but they spitted facts based on what they found, right? Or if they're knowledgeable on how to get $1 million or how to be a bestseller, are they really knowledgeable, or have they just read a blog somewhere and now they sound educated on that topic?
Right. Absolutely. Mm-mm-mm.
Mm-mm-mm.
So
Well,
I guess
and let
real
me.
quick, if we talk
Oh, go
about
ahead, bro.
Clubhouse, no, I was going to talk about the speaking thing, but go ahead. I'll come back to that. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to clear something up. Just for our audience. Um, when I say the word qualified, I'm talking about people that got the experience behind the education. I'm not just talking about it because you can have 16 molecular biologists in a room and only one of them know how to do something in the lab. It's just about, having that, okay, I said this and I know how to show you it. It's show you this as well. That's what I meant, by qualified. I'm not saying, if, of course, if you have a certain amount of knowledge, of course, share that information. And if you can explain it well, great. But I'm all about having the experience and the know-how to show this person what you're talking about rather than just explaining it. So that's why I lean on people that have that, right, instead of just saying, oh, you know about autism, go ahead and just go up there and talk. I can't do that.
I completely agree. I think you have to be, and that's why I'm very, like, when you guys asked me about mechanical engineering, I said, let me talk about what I am qualified in. I am qualified in the wind energy fluid dynamics, fluid mechanics aspect, right? Because it's such a multifaceted type of engineering.
Right.
And so that's to your point. Like, even though I may do IT management now, if they ask me something about like cloud or one of the other amazing technologies going on, I may touch on it at my job, but I'm not necessarily qualified. So you won't hear me talking about it. So I totally understand what you're saying.
Got it. Awesome. So before we go any further, I'd like for everybody to make sure you follow us on social media, on the STEM Files Facebook, the STEM Files YouTube, and at the STEM Files on Instagram. We are the voice of STEM talent and Black culture, live every Thursday and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Jabril engineer Tariq Cardiac. Bro.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So I wanted to, now that we got into Clubhouse, I did want to talk about you as being a public speaker, a keynote speaker, if you will. I think when we talk about speaking engagements, TED Talks, TEDx, anytime you're speaking in front of people, I think I saw one of your posts on Instagram, maybe kind of recently, as I was scrolling, you talked about, having some type of apprehension at one point in your life when it came to public speaking. So speak to that a bit. How did you overcome that? And what are some, what is some advice you would have for those who want to get into public speaking, particularly on a global keynote level?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you're right. Even just hearing the word public speaking, I'm like, oh gosh. I definitely used to feel faint when I first started, I think. And it was just a leap of faith. And I can't even explain it. I remember just feeling almost like I was holding something in. And I would look at these conferences, and this is, I was looking at Society of Women Engineers, their local conference when I was living in California. And I forgot what the pillar was, but it was something about graduate school and, developing in graduate school. And I say, oh, well, I could talk about that. I just finished graduate school. And so I could talk about my experience. And I did that first one and I was terrified. You could hear it in my voice. And then from that engagement, I actually got hired to do my first real speaking engagement out of the state. I went to like a summer research experience at NYU, and I did a whole leveraging your summer undergraduate research experience for jobs or something like that. And that was a really great experience for me. And I realized, this is something that I am enjoying, one, but I'm also passionate about when I see people take what I have shared about myself and apply it to their journey, right? So either they don't make the same mistake twice, they don't make the same mistakes I did, or they do even better than I did, right? Absolutely. So they use it as a foundation. So I would say one thing I've done, so a couple things. The first thing I did, I started to invest in myself because I really had to be intentional about saying, I want to do speaking engagement. I would like to do public speaking. And I decided to take a coaching class on public speaking. So that was the first thing. And you don't necessarily have to take a coaching class, but you definitely have to be intentional about, this is what I want to do and how am I going to do it? Am I going to maybe practice, take some coaching lessons, find a mentor, right? Somebody who may be a mentor in that space and they can actually guide you and give you tips. The second thing I did was I really thought about what my expertise was, right? So what do you want to speak about? And a lot of times we hear some of these keynotes and you're like, wow, that person, how did they even do that? And they're really speaking to what they know. So we need to think about, what is it that I am good at? And I thought about the experiences I had. So a lot of my speaking engagements are based on my experiences in grad school, or based on my experiences from, transitioning from Trinidad to the US, and what that kind of that cultural exchange was like. So for example, I talk about imposter syndrome. That's an experience I had in graduate school. So that's something I could speak to. So you really want to think about, what are my expertise? And then you think about, what are my branded expertise? So let's say leadership is that general expertise, right? My branded expertise would be something like activating your network to become a leader, right? Something that's really specific to what I know. And then the third thing is, think about your brand. So we talk about expertise, but really when you think about your expertise, you want to make sure that you're not just talking across an entire spectrum, right? You want to be really specific and start small. So that way you take that specific story and you grow. But back to that point, we said, only state facts that you're knowledgeable in, because when I talk about things that I know, that's when I'm the most comfortable.
Yeah.
So I always spin it back to something personal. When I talk about imposter syndrome, I talk about my first time speaking, and then I spin it back to, these are some of the things, or the method that I took to overcome my imposter syndrome. Like, how do we get over it? And so I structured talks like that, and it works. And then you find the partnerships, of course, because you have all that. Now you need to find places to speak, right? So you use your network, leverage your network. I know sometimes it may feel odd that we're chasing people, but it could be as simple as reaching out to schools on LinkedIn, or companies on LinkedIn, depending on what you're doing. If you're talking about innovation, it would be companies. Hi, I speak about XYZ. I would love to come share with your group. Would you have availability to chat some more so that I could tell you about my expertise and what I do? All they can say is no, right?
Right.
What you need Clubhouse for? We're getting game right here.
Right. Come on.
Exactly.
You just hating. That's like you hating. You hating.
I'm an Android user, so I don't know nothing about Clubhouse.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So those are some of a few things. No, those are some of a few things, right? And I really started to get practice by attending conferences. I would just apply for conferences, and if I get to speak about, okay, great. This is a great way for me to build a workshop. And so I started building workshops for these conferences, and I've turned them into keynotes.
And speaking of brands, we done spent the last 40 minutes of the show and we didn't even talk about your company that you just started. So tell us about the STEMINIST Empowerment LLC. What is that? What is that
Yeah.
about, and how does it work?
No, thank you. Love it. STEMINIST Empowered LLC. That was started last July. And this year, I'm so excited to finally kick things off. And just as some background, when I graduated, maybe a year after, I started a blog called Black Girl's Guide to Grad School. And that is what spawned my book, which I'll talk about that a little bit, A Black Girl's Guide to the PhD. And through that blog, I was also reviewing people's personal statements, right? So if they're applying to graduate school, I would review their personal statements. And over the past few years, I've reviewed over 100 personal statements. And I really wanted to try to use that experience that I have with not just, women, but also, a few men too, and see how I could really make a difference. So STEMINIST Empowered was born because I really wanted a way to advocate. I wanted a way to empower. I wanted a way to give guidance to women of color who are pursuing advanced degrees. We talked about this earlier. What can we do to be a support so that more Black women graduate with PhDs? What can we do, or what are we doing when we talk about the word advocate? Are we really advocating? Right. And that's where STEMINIST Empowered comes in. So through that, I'm still building that brand. But one of the first things we're going to do, kicking off in June, July. So if you guys have any recommendations on women who you think would benefit, I'm going to start a mentorship program. And that mentorship program will probably be about 6 months. We'll meet on a bi-weekly or monthly basis. And I'm really going to talk about some topics that I think would be beneficial in graduate school as well as beyond, career development, mentorship, what it means to build your network, things like that. All those pieces that I wish I knew, but I have also been learning along the way as my career progresses that are going to be beneficial to the women. Then the other piece is going to be the personal statement. I'm going to continue that on a more scaled back basis, but that's something that I've always enjoyed doing and I continue to do. So that's a little bit about STEMINIST Empowered and where we're heading this year.
See, wow. You were the second guest in the last week that after you've said something in particular that makes me remember what I'm supposed to be doing in terms of this personal brand that I've been putting on the back burner for like the past. We're not going to talk about that. We just
sometimes things take time.
My issue, my issue is because my mother has been like just writing me about it, but in the best of ways, because she knows I have a certain skill set and a certain love. I think sometimes for me, I always can say, well, I have time, and then something happens and it literally takes me like time to get things out, but I tend to overthink. I tend to go, what if, and I'm thinking about all the ways to how to make this perfect and because I don't want to give a lackluster product, right? I want this to be of value. I want people to not only feel me, but all the components that are a part of it. So, thank you so much for sharing that. Congratulations. And we would definitely be, being on the lookout for people who, can benefit and maybe potentially even add value to what it is that you'll be doing. I wanted to talk about something that we've all had occur in our lives, and I think is very important to unpack. So, we talk about failure, right? And perceived failure, actual failure. What is your attitude toward failure? Is it necessary for success? And in the end, how do we ensure that we learned the lesson?
So I don't think failure is necessary for success, but I do think it helps you value your success a bit more. Because you don't know what you're gaining until you've lost it, right? So when you lose something, it means that much more when you have to work hard to get it back. Whereas if you never lost it, you probably don't hold on to it as much. And it may not be this, the the item or the thing that you lost or the opportunity that you lost. It could have been something else that drives you to now really be proactive in any other opportunity that may come your way. So that's what I think. We all go through failure. It may not be on the same level as everybody else's failure, but we all go through some sort of failure. It could be as simple as a small rejection letter to a lost opportunity or lost job, or maybe a proposal that you had submitted that you thought you'd get, and that was lost out to someone else. That's a failure. And so I don't think we should judge each other's failure based on scale, right? For me, failure is failure. And as long as you take that failure and you learn from it so that you could apply those lessons and give it to that successful story that you have in you, that's the most important. I think one thing I had to learn was, okay, how do I now go from what I felt was, I had this failure, so now I feel as if certain things that align with that are going to be impossible. So how do I switch my mindset? Right. And I had to really switch my mindset on thinking, okay, I have failed this one opportunity that I thought I would get. That shouldn't discourage me from applying to anything else. And it was really hard for me to not talk myself out of applying myself, right, when failure happened to me, because I would fail and then say, well, if I fail that, then maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe I shouldn't be applying myself to those type of opportunities. But I really had to think about and analyze. So what were some of the issues that happened that caused me to fail? Sometimes it's beyond our control, right? Sometimes it's just the things that happen on the other side of the track. But the things that I can control, how can I improve it so that when I do apply myself again, let's say I do decide to pursue that opportunity, I know that I have put in all the work, or I know that I have put in all the lessons. So that's definitely one thing when I think about my failure and my experiences. But it takes practice, to be honest. And I'm not saying like you go out here and you're going to fail all the time, right? But it takes practice to change your mindset. And that's a hard thing for us to do, because regardless of if it's failing or anything else, your mindset really affects how you approach certain situations.
Hey, you said something very key because, okay, bro.
Go
You
ahead,
say
bro.
something?
Finish your thought. Go ahead.
Okay.
Finish it up.
No, I was gonna say, you said something very key about, it not being an overnight process. That's a lot of times that's what deters us from getting better, is because we don't understand that it takes time. This is a process. It's not something you just wake up, oh, I'm better, I'm a better person, I'm going to do this better. Sure, there's not more powerful than a made up mind, but the mind has to be made up on the process. You can't just be
Right.
so,
Yep.
uh, I'm tired of this, so it's going to stop today. Sure, if you have the will, but the will is to go into the process. It's not to just be so, you know, express with it in a sense. You
Yeah.
got to take your time with it.
Yeah, and you have to have patience, and we don't give ourselves enough grace.
Right.
And you have to learn to give yourself grace. Give yourself grace to fail. I think we are a part of a culture where failure for us isn't an option. And you go to school, you're supposed to get A's, you get an A minus. Oh, what happened? Or a B, what happened? And we've always felt as if we have to be at the peak. And if we aren't at the peak, then we aren't first, right? Not understanding that it's an incremental process. We're climbing that ladder, we're taking a step. It's a stepping stone. And if you just go in like that and you're not laying that foundation, then it's going to be much easier for you to fall. And we need to understand that. We need to understand that it's a learning process. It's going to take time, and time allows us to really build a foundation. And once we have that foundation, if we do fail, we're not going to fall as far, right? Or we're going to know how to build ourselves back up.
Mhm. You know,
Mm,
a number of things were said. You talked about failing, making mistakes. You know, Tariq and I, as members of the Nation of Islam, one of the things that we are taught is mistakes shall not exist in the Nation of Islam. But what does that mean? It's not that we won't make them, but we are to learn from them so that they are erased. We learn from them, we move forward, we fail
right.
forward, and we make a new mistake. We fail forward. Now that mistake no longer exists. You also talked about
Hmm.
perfection. We want to be perfect. I was in a seminar or workshop once at my job, and I heard a very interesting, and I've also heard it in the Nation of Islam as well, but a very interesting concept of perfection. A lot of times people think to be perfect is to be without flaw, but to be perfect can also be perceived as to be complete. So I'm I can be, or this process can be perfect in that it's finished. It's not necessarily perfect in that it looks or sounds or acts in a way that you feel like is without flaw, but it is complete, it is finished. So when we are moving through a process and we have gotten to a point of completion, in that level, in that plateau, we are complete, yet we are perfect at that level. But there's still room for growth. Perfection doesn't mean you're done. It can mean that you are complete. So I definitely think that that was very profound what you talked about, which failure does give you a level of greater valued understanding of what you've gone through. In a way, pain is necessary for growth. You think about childbirth, you think about working out, you think about a plant going from a seed to a sprout to a full fledged plant, right? What is it about that process, that pain? See, if you don't test yourself to a certain threshold, you can't go beyond because you'll think that that current
Mm-hmm.
threshold is where you stop, right?
Right.
But when you test yourself and you test yourself and you put yourself under stress, right? You see what you're made of, and now you have a higher threshold. So now you have to test yourself even more, which is why when you work out, they tell you what? Vary your workouts. At a certain point, push up, sit up, squats ain't gonna do it no more. You
Right.
gotta hit a few weights here. You gotta do a little bit of cardio. So when you want to get that physical, that very cosmetic shift, but also that very functional shift, you have to vary what it is that you do. So thank you so
Exactly.
much for definitely what you have shared. It's Tariq. It's almost been an hour already, bro.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just dropping jewels. Like I said before, we don't need Clubhouse. We got it right here. So
that's the
we
Android
do.
uh,
user.
oh my God, man, y'all coming for me tonight. But it's an amazing platform here. We get to see what is in the minds of our scientists and our engineers. So it was a beautiful opportunity for you to be on the show. We don't consider the opportunity for you. We consider the opportunity for us. So we are eternally grateful for everything that you've given us tonight. Um, we're in the last 7 minutes of the show, so we like to do something called a STEM file speed round.
Ta- Tariq,
Oh, go ahead, go ahead, bro.
let's actually switch it up because one thing I think that's
Okay,
been working well for us that we actually haven't done.
right.
So, Malika, what we've been doing recently is we've been allowing our guests to kind of interview us. So what has been happening is, if people have had any questions, they've been able to kind of switch roles. So I know I'd like to know if there's anything from today's session, anything that you've seen from us, on social media, or anything at all you'd like to know or ask us, you can feel free to do that at this time.
So, first things first, how do I become an owner in science and technology? I see that going across the page there. So, tell me a little bit about that.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a
So
great
so
question. I love
basically,
it.
yeah. You want to
Go ahead,
answer,
bro.
bro?
No, go. You already fired up. Go ahead. I'll follow up if
All
I
right.
need to.
Cool. Cool. So basically, we have a company called Original Man Scientific, and this company is basically a science and technology company that we built to deliver the benefits of research and development to your community. So how we do that is we pretty much take an idea from the idea all the way to an actual invention or product that could be used to advance a certain market, that could be used to transform human life or just make your overall situation better. So when we say owner, we're talking about taking the idea that you have or whatever it is that it's being applied to, and you own 100% of everything that you produce from your ideas or from your intellectual property. So that's how we use science and technology to make people owners in a certain area of STEM. So say, for example, you being a mechanical engineer and you develop some type of, and y'all can tell me what's some of the tools y'all use in mechanical engineering.
Oh,
Like what would be some?
So the common senior design project, Doc. Everybody loves the mechanical arm, right?
Yeah, I was thinking. So I had a robotic arm, for example. I had a robotic arm in my PhD. So you're saying I could show you the designs that I had, and then
yeah. So basically,
mass produce this.
Right. So we would take everything that you've already put together, even if it's just an idea. We would take you in a product we have called Inventx Studios. This studio is basically a one-stop shop for an inventor. So if you have, even if it's just something as like an idea concept. Now we're taught in the Nation of Islam that our ideas don't belong to us. So the Inventx Studios is to literally help you make your ideas belong to you.
Nice.
So whether it's a prototype, a patent, even if you just want a simple design done on computer-aided design, we handle all of those things for you right within the studio. So yes, if you had a mechanical arm that you had and you have a certain idea for it in a certain way you want it to perform, you bring it right to us and we help you get it done.
So what about students? Like, how does this work for students? Can students apply for this? Because I think this is great for our developed professionals, experienced professionals, but oftentimes high school students, they have the best ideas, but they don't have an outlet, right? So they need almost like that sandbox. And I think something like this would be really beneficial.
Absolutely.
Oh my God, that's an awesome name.
Go ahead and answer that, bro.
No, I'm sorry.
Say
she
again?
said sandbox. Like that's a dope name for.
For the youth. For the youth.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God.
We're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about that later.
Right.
That is funny.
Answering your question very specifically. So absolutely, this is definitely something. Okay. What we understand is our people in particular, right? You think about throughout slavery. You think about before, after. We've always been genius. We've always been those who've been builders of civilization, who have had ideas and had the requisite knowledge base to bring it to fruition. Now, one thing while we tout children, while we talk about high school students, is they're still impressionable. They're still able to be pliable when it comes to meeting and overcoming obstacles. They still don't believe that there's anything called impossible. You start getting a job, you get into the workforce, you move a little bit and you come back, you move a little bit as an adult, right? So you have that, you've experienced fear a lot of times. So what we're letting people know is, you literally have the ability to smash the impossible. It's the old adage, right? If you can conceive it, you can literally take that knowledge base, get it on paper, and actually bring it to fruition. So we're doing this as a service, really to help people create what we call legacy. To be able to have stake forever in something that you designed. We sign NDAs. We make it so that, listen, we're trying to be, the plane, if you will, and you're the pilot. So wherever you want to go, you want to ensure that you get there safely and on time, so that you can be the main beneficiary, you and your family, your community, for what it is that comes from your mind. So again, we make sure that you can patent your process, your product, right? We go through design. I oversee engineering, so we do those types of things. We are involved in shipping container solutions as well, app development, a number of different things. So absolutely, anyone of any age can tap in with us.
Okay, sounds good. So my last question, since I know we're coming up on the hour, have you read Hooded yet? Let me see.
I have not read Hooded yet.
Tell us about the book.
Talk to us about it.
So hooded.
I'm so sorry. I can't believe we didn't even talk about that. But go ahead.
No,
I was,
that
I
this
was
is fine.
ready to get to it.
So hooded is about my experiences as a Black woman going through a PhD program. I talked about earlier being the second Black woman to graduate from the PhD program in mechanical engineering, the first Caribbean woman, the first Black American woman. And so hooded talks about some of those experiences I had because I was the only one, because I didn't see representation, because I felt like an imposter, because it was difficult for me to lead. I really highlight every year of my journey. And then I have a guide at the back of each chapter to challenge people to really internalize their experience and think about how they can improve once they're going through that year. Right. So for example, when it comes to the research projects, I ask 5 whys. So one of the things I used to do, I started to ask myself why certain things would happen in my results. Why is that? Why is that important? Why is that? Until I really truly understood, because I think sometimes we jump to the answer and we don't really have the knowledge behind it. And we mentioned that earlier. So asking yourself the 5 whys really helps you peel back the layers so that you feel more confident in your research topic. So there are different activities like that. But it stemmed from Black Girls Guide to Grad School 4 or 5 years ago. And then it took me 4 years to finish. So I just published it about 5.5 months ago.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
You're welcome.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I saw that the influx of posts about 5 months. I've seen you had a lot
Yeah.
of traction, so it was awesome.
Yep.
It was hard to keep up with, kind of too, but it was a lot. So it was definitely great.
Yeah, the love was amazing. I never thought we would. I sold like 2,500 copies, and in the
Nice.
first couple months, and that was really amazing because it really resonated with not just Black women, not just people of color, but actually allies or people who would like to be allies and who want to know how can they support the Black women in their fields, can they support the Black women not just in their programs but also in their industry.
Right.
Man, we definitely gonna be working together in the future. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
So thank you again, once again, for joining us on tonight's
Thanks for
episode of
having
the STEM
me.
File. Absolutely, absolutely. And are there any closing remarks you'd like to leave the audience with before we go?
I think we talked about a few different things, but one of the items I remember was be bold, take that risk, have that confidence so that you could challenge the status quo. And you can find me on social media. So
okay, speaking of social media, so
oh,
hold on, I'm gonna pull it up because
okay.
we've been forgetting to put this up the last couple episodes. How can people contact you?
So you can find me on my website, malikagrayson.com, or on IG at Dr. Malika Grayson, Twitter, Malika Grayson, LinkedIn, Malika Grayson. Just Google my name and you can find me on any one of those.
Awesome. And Jabril, you want to shed some light on what people can go back and watch if they missed it last weekend?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, Nation of Islam had its annual Saviors Day convention. How strong is the foundation? Can we survive? This past weekend, February 26th to the 28th. If you missed this 3-day extravaganza, we typically do it in person. We had a series of workshops: reality of God, how to eat to live, marriage and family, defending Farrakhan, how to conduct yourself on social media, Ministry of Science and Technology, agriculture. So there was a number of different, very pertinent nation building workshops to tap into, and obviously the Honorable Mr. Farrakhan spoke as well. So go to www.noi.org/SD 2021 to get some recaps on what you may have missed. And if you didn't miss it, go back and take additional notes. I had a wonderful time. I gained a lot, and I'm still in my study today and will be for over the next several days and possibly weeks. So definitely make sure to tap in with that. And as always, this has been the STEM Files, where we highlight the best advice in science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Family, I was thoroughly fed. Like you said, I always get hyped whenever there's engineers on, but the melanin is amazing, right? Western talent and Black culture, the brilliant engineer, Tariq Cardiac, the wonderful Dr. Malika Grayson. Thank you again, Queen, for spending time with us. If you like our content and want to donate to help us expand in everything that we do, You can donate at Cash App, the STEM Files, or you can text 770-695-7912. That's 770-695-7912. We love y'all so much, family. We appreciate the support. Until next time, Tariq, do we have some insights on our next guest?
Yes, we do. But me being, forgetful at times, I forgot to upload the picture of who our next guest is. But
We forgot to
I
upload the
believe,
picture.
yes. um, yes, we do have a next guest. So definitely tune in this time next Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern time to tune in to see who our next guest is. And as a matter of fact, I am very fond of what this person does, so I'm going to leave it as a surprise. And whenever I'm fond of what the person does, my energy is like on 100, So it's definitely going to be a dope show. I'm not throwing no shade on the engineers. I'm just saying that, when you have the life sciences on, it's just it's a better experience for me. I'm just saying,
Oh, yeah.
But this is once again been another edition of the STEM Files. We are the voice of STEM talent and Black culture. Until next time.